what was on the printed material for today had to do with faith and science. I'm going to punt that because something happened this week, which I think was very interesting.
Thank you.
And that is through one of our outreach partners. And across North Carolina, there was a census about homelessness, people who were unsheltered. And a lot of it has to do with a count on a certain day across the state that has to do with funding and approach and how we can help those in that situation. And through our outreach partner here, and Kevin, who is their liaison, I'll let him say more about that, he recruited other people in the community to go out and to see who was having a hard time finding housing that night. And so I thought, this is much more timely, appropriate to us in our ministry and things like that. The God and science issue we can take that up next week, although I have something else I might want to do next week. We'll talk about that. But Kevin, first of all, thank you and your team for all that you did in preparing for that. And I'll let you introduce your team and say more about what happened. And then this can be, after y'all presented some things, be interactive. But we'd really like to hear about what the experience was like for you personally, what you learned in it all personally, from start to finish. So I'll turn it over to you and your group.
Sure, thank you. Well, last summer was my inaugural outreach committee member. You're assigned to a couple of agencies that we support through outreach. And my first visit was to the group they're located in Silva, and it's housing, equity, resources, and education, a lot, here in Jackson County. And their mission is to identify and support unsheltered homeless throughout Jackson County. And so we fund them to help them pay for shelter or whatever someone in need may be. It could be families, it could be someone who's disabled, elderly. It runs the gamut, anyone who's unsheltered. And they mentioned, this is June of last year, they said, we do a required, by HUD, we do a required census, or what they call point-in-time count of the unsheltered in Jackson County, those homeless folks. I'm like, oh, okay. And we do it once a year, and we always need volunteers. Well, that sounds great. And so my thinking that second was, okay, it's going to be next month. It's going to be in a shelter in Silva. So I come up here and meet with the crew, and they show me how to do a count of how many homeless folks are. No, it's the last Wednesday in January, and you go outside and find the homeless. Uh-oh. That just changed a lot. So now it's fun. I'm not looking for fun, but I was looking for an easy start. I just to be honest, that'd be interesting. The boy it did. So we get back, and Bill Canby, who was head of outreach last year, and he's just shaking his head. What have you done? He goes, well, I'll do it. So we get back, and then I do my report. Linda Quick goes, oh, I'll come up, I'll do it. I'm like, y'all, it's the end of January. She goes, I don't care, I'll be up here. So I thought, what are we gonna do? Okay, well, the three of us now will go up in Silva and count people out in the woods. So I called the director.
You forgot that we didn't know what time we were doing.
Yeah, it's all coming up. So I called the director, and they are a staff of 3, and it's not an easy thing. They try to get funding from the federal government through HUD, which they have to do this reporting from this census they take. They have to get money from the state. Thankfully, thank God, we give them funding and support in other ways, volunteer like this project. So I called the director, Greta Worley, practically every month, Mr. Gotta get it done. I'll get to it. So finally, she calls me back after MLK weekend, which I thought, okay, we'll wait. She goes, okay, the count's coming 31st, and we're ready to go. I said, Greta, I have no idea what we're doing, and I've got 3 people that oh, well, why don't we come down to Cashers and meet with y'all? I said, okay, so set up, talk to Ellen, got this room. Linda said, I'm coming up, Bill's here. Suddenly Allison's in the middle. Pastor Aaron from the Methodist Church, she brings a couple of folks where I think that was, before you know it, the 4 of us had turned into like 10, I think at that point. So we sit down with the administrative assistant admin who comes down to this training. So tell us what we do when we're up there. She goes, well, no, you're gonna do this for Southern Jackson County. And I'm like, oh, okay, so, all right, where is that? Well, from here to Glenville Crossroads to Burlingame to Big Overview and near Macon County. I'm like, no, all the way down to South Carolina. I'm like, all right, tell me what this was like last year. How was this done? It wasn't. You're it. There's no best practices, you know, my little corporate mind, there's no FAQs, there's no best practices, there's nothing to grab onto. We are taking account of homeless, unsheltered people, 29-degree weather, with a team of people who, to my knowledge, have no experience with how to work with folks who live outside or exist. And I thought, oh God, how's this gonna, you know, you've kept my hands full, you've kept my mouth fed, you've done all these things for me. Somehow my faith will get us through and God will find a way to get this happen. So, and Linda can jump in here anytime. Linda says, I'll do blessing bags. And I said, well, I'll do a map. We can't just cover 100 square miles of Southern Jackson County like this. And we're writing procedures. Well, the husband of the guy who did the training, he's like, what are y'all doing? You're just overdoing this, overthinking. I'm like, Chuck, we don't know what we're doing. I said, you're gonna be our coordinator. He goes, okay, I can be the coordinator. I said, we're gonna call you Coach Chuck. So Coach, he goes, I don't like that. I said, good. You are Coach Chuck. And you're gonna be the one who tells us everything we can't do, because that's what you've done so far. We're gonna get through it. Well, he first thing tells Linda, she says, this is what the blessing bags. And now remember, Linda is a good planner, really good planner. And he's telling Allison what she can't do and Aaron can't do. And we're going, okay, we need a little help here. We are volunteers. And so when it's all said and done, 14 of us were together last Wednesday night at 10 o'clock at night until midnight, out in the woods, out in the places where the port security officer from Sapphire Valley goes, oh, we stop, and he goes, y'all are nuts. Just go home. He goes, what are you doing? He goes, these people are dangerous. These people are mean. He goes, are y'all carrying?
Kevin said, carrying what?
And so these bags I thought, these elaborate bags, they were great. That led to, she held on, she goes, I'm carrying a lesson bag. And another guy we're with, a police officer, a retired police officer, had found a golf ball in the village green. He goes, I'm carrying. And he goes, y'all are crazy. Go home, go to bed. He goes, don't go that way. I said, who's up that way? He said, there's Jumpin' Jay, and there's so-and-so, but Jay will jump on you, and don't go up that dirt road by the sync station. So once we rolled up the window, I'm like, where's that dirt road? And we did.
We're all in one car.
There were 4 teams.
We were 4 teams. Go ahead, yes.
There were 4 teams, and 3 of us were in the car that the minute he said, you don't want to go up where Jay is, because Jay will jump on you. So if you have the courage to do that, you know, you shouldn't have the courage to do that. Shannon, the former 26-year veteran police officer, rolled the window up, and Kevin says, we go on the dirt road, and he said, yeah, we are. We go up, and
it was not a road, it was just dirt.
It was dirt, looking for Jumpin' Jay.
And we found where he lives. But at 29 degrees, folks are very, as Allison can attest to, they're resourceful.
Yeah, we found a tent, you know, looked like items. We found a barn with stuff in it, but people were somewhere else for Wednesday night because it was cold.
The wrap up of all of this is that we had 4 teams, 14
Right.
captains. We found 1 individual, but many locations where individuals were.
Yeah.
And we found, our team found 2 cars that had been lived in, but either left when we came or had that night, because it was below freezing, had left the car, found the place where they were to sleep that night that was a little bit warmer. And the rule is from here, and their rule from the state is that if you had a place to sleep that night, you were not eligible for any resources from them.
Oh.
And in our first meeting, when they told us that, we were all like, well, we're not gonna follow that rule. If they don't have a place to sleep, we're gonna count them as homeless because we all were a little on the softer side than they were. I mean, they were worried about not getting federal grants, and we were worried about, we're gonna count them as homeless so they can get resources. And so it's just a different perspective of how you treat and deal with people. He did not want us to give them food or any of the things that we put in the bags, and that was not gonna happen. We were gonna give them fruit and food and gloves and hats, and Kathy Canby drove to Brevard to get scarves and everything. So the thing that we had in common and that we were taught again is that Southern Jackson County isn't treated like the rest of the county. They had never found anybody to count. I don't think they'd ever really tried to find anybody to count here. And so this area has not been accounted for. Ever.
Oh.
And so only because Kevin said, I'll do it.
In June.
In June, did it get counted this time. And only because my grandmother told me, take the job nobody else wants.
Yeah.
Did I say I would go with Kevin. And I thought he was going by himself. If I'd known Bill was going with him, I wouldn't have done it. But I will tell you, it's a remarkable experience because you see things in a different way. And when you're scared a little bit, as I was, when Kevin and I both were, when Shannon, the former police officer, got out of the car to go knock on Jumping Jay's window, Kevin and I stayed in the car. This is the one that...
We took baby steps.
Well, we did get out finally, but he got out first.
He was in his car?
He was in our car.
The three of us were together, but we thought Jay was in his
He
car.
was in his car.
But Shannon got out,
Shannon's a big man.
a big guy,
Huge.
who wasn't carrying, but you wouldn't have wanted to tangle with him. No, he got out to make sure if Jumping Jay was in his car or not. Then Kevin and I felt comfortable when he wasn't in the car to get out and say, hey. But I learned several things. One of which is so gratifying. First of all, Shannon said to me when we started out, that
He
he
was not
was,
our fan at first.
he was interested in coming to Cashers to help us because he wanted to find out what homeless and Cashers meant. Did that mean we're down to our last house?
Or a lost golf ball that was in
So,
the,
yeah.
when he picked that up, I said, you're thinking that's your count for the night. He just kind of,
He didn't think much of Cashers.
or us.
Obviously.
Yeah.
But
First.
later in the night, he said, I've always heard how generous Good Shepherd is. How much do you give away? I know you give away lots of money every year. How much do you give away? And so I said, last year we gave away $303,000. And his jaw literally dropped. He could not believe it. And as it turns out, his wife is somebody we know. She is the executive director of Away. And both Kevin and I said, that's one of our favorite groups. And he said, well, she loves you guys. I mean, she's so supportive. And I hear all the time what great work you do. And now I see why I'm so glad I came. There's one person in Silva who thinks we're wonderful, and I'm not sure he would have thought that unless he had come to do this count to find out if we were all down to our last one house. And that was his take on Cashers. The other thing I learned is and I've said this to a couple of you, is the impact of our language. And a couple of these people who were out looking, who are experienced people with homeless or unsheltered, and they use unfortunate words in describing their plight. And I probably have done similar things. I don't know. But they don't discuss them in the terms we should discuss God's creations in. they discuss them in terms of creatures or
Statistics.
they're not even statistics,
Subhuman.
they're subhuman. I mean, they talk about how mean they are or
Who's that?
dangerous they are. And not, and maybe they are.
I wouldn't mention the name, but
Yeah.
people that deal with them every night.
What type of person are you talking about? The police?
I'm just saying, a couple of the volunteers,
Oh.
who were with us, people who have who've done this count before. But it's not them I'm criticizing myself. I'm saying that sometimes my filter doesn't work well. And not in terms of describing homeless, but in terms of saying everything. I think it's important that when we're describing others or reacting to others, and especially, particularly in this instance, we need to remember that we are all children of God, and we need to see God in other people, and try to relate to people in that way, rather than through our own bias. I mean, I'm speaking now of my own bias, and that night was a huge eye-opener for me, because I had to get past it to be able to walk around and call out, and it wasn't an easy thing to do. So that's mine.
Yeah, and I think the turning point maybe for Shannon, our police officer said, yeah, okay, folks and cashiers, did one of your gates not work? In the golf ball, I think. I said, well, what about this? I knew exactly what it was. In the Village Green was the remnants of a little meth lab, right where we all dance and sit, and he goes, really? That's meth.
Yes, he did.
That's what I thought. I mean, I've seen these things in Atlanta, but there it is. And then he approached a locked door that looked like it had been jammed. And before he stepped on the threshold, took his flashlight and he looked down. The landing step in front of the door had fresh footprints.
Amazing.
Because the frost that night, somebody had just stood probably within minutes because it was that fresh on the frost. And the print is, someone was just here. And so, of course, Lynn and I are right there. Just got my arm. We're going, here we go. And it's not funny, but it's one of those, so much you laugh, cry, or scream, or run, or it's fight or flight type of a moment. The adrenaline, all that going on, the humility of it all. And he goes, the person could be locked behind this door sleeping. And so we knocked, and are you okay? We're here just to make sure you're okay. Of course, there's no answer. Why would you open a locked door if you found refuge there? But the prints didn't go away anywhere. They just went in. And then he stood and went, I'll be, and said something like one of those awakening moments, like, we've got a mission to do here. And so then our next stop was coming across the public safety officer going, I just ran into another bunch of y'all. What is wrong with y'all? And Shannon rolls the window down, he's in the front seat, Linda's in the back. I'm like, we explained what we're doing. He goes, no, you all do not want to be encountering these people. They are mean, they're hateful. He goes, you all go back to your homes.
They're meth heads.
They're meth heads. He goes, I hope you're all caring. And that's when Shannon held up his golf ball. He goes, well, I have this. And he goes, you're nuts. And then Linda goes, I've got my blessing bag. And it was just one of those tense, nervous, but from his perspective, every night, I'm sure he runs into every type of human being. And we're running to it, he's running away from it or trying to get rid of it. And as you said, it's us. Could have been anyone on that other side of the fence or whatever out in those woods. In a car that's broken down, it still gets, once below 32, it still gets below 32 even in that broken, it doesn't heat up.
Yeah.
And so I think if nothing else, that was the awakening that we have people to take care of who don't have shelter here. And that's the first thing we got to do.
Another thing that I observed and learned is that the work we do on the Outreach Grants Committee in terms of working with our partners, our agency partners, is so important because most of our agencies, with very few exceptions, are small and have one executive director or two or three at most. And they aren't paid much, and they are dedicated, and they work around the clock practically, and they aren't as skilled as they need to be to do everything they need to do. And this was a good example. Kevin was being Kevin, and he jumped right in, he got them organized, he got everything planned, and I think they don't know exactly what hit them when they got to us.
Well, there was nothing there. I'd say, well, what was it last year?
Nothing, you're right.
Can you give me procedure? No.
Yeah.
And you can just feel the earth doing this going, uh-oh, we have nothing to start with. Not even a clue of where to go.
But now they do.
Yeah.
And one of the things we've been working on is how can we add value aside from our cash donations to these organizations. And I had kind of lost my enthusiasm for that. And Bill Cambian and I and a couple others have been working on that for a couple of years to figure out how to do it. But after going through this experience and seeing this agency in action, I realized that is an important sort of, not primary goal, but something good that we can do in addition to what we do. And I feel energized about that again. Just a little sub note.
Just a quick thing too, of the 14, we were a minority. There were 8 others outside of Good Shepherd.
Yeah.
There were what now, say that again?
So from the community, we started off with a Good Shepherd isolated project to support one of our agencies. Then 8 others have nothing to do with Good Shepherd said, I want to help. I want to help. And it was the mix of Allison, you can.
The Methodists, and then Ralph Campbell from the Westland Church. So.
Yeah.
Did you go to the Village Green?
Oh, yeah.
That's where we got
Got a
that.
myth.
Oh, really?
Yeah, welcome.
Village Green? Kevin, I've got 2
And
questions.
I'm not saying that, but that's the aha one. It's here, it's real. If someone says, well, we'll just take away their food, that way they'll scatter, and we don't have that here, which we heard that night. That's not going to solve anything. If you find a basic thing, find someone a place to live, to shelter, then they can get food, then they can get a job, then they can possibly get off the street. But just chasing someone away by not offering services to starve them to death or freeze them to death, which I think there was an obituary recently that someone did die. It's right here. It's not up on the dirt road, not just on that dirt road. It's right here.
Wow.
One of our volunteers is a man who's homeless.
So, yeah.
Right.
We need to, 2 questions. A, what was your count? And B, is it seasonal? Because I see in the summer, people 5 or 10 miles from nowhere with backpacks walking up the road. So is it a seasonal?
It's a one night, one event.
I mean, is the homeless population here seasonal?
We don't know.
We don't know.
It could be, who knows, but you're gonna find probably statistics that I've read, fewer. We found 1 in traces of 4. You go to Oakland, you're gonna find thousands. But if you're in a cold night in the middle of January, like the night they do it, your odds of finding them unsheltered and helping them when it's cold and they need it is gonna be a lot, I won't say easier, but there's a better path to finding them than in the middle of June when everyone's out. And why would I want a shelter on a night like tonight? It's at one point in time, January, the last Wednesday in January.
Actually, we want
And
to
it's
redo.
national. This is every county that gets money from the state and from HUD. HUD requires this annual point in time count.
We want to redo HUD because they really should be, their practices, because they really should be doing it
I
in
don't
the
want to
daytime, when they're visible and you can see them, because at night, at 10 o'clock at night, they've already found where they're gonna sleep and they're hidden, so.
Who would want to see strangers come in the middle of the night and
Wake them up.
We're here to help. We're making sure you're okay because it's a cold night. And I could see, again, I've seen people in Atlanta that were like that, like, you're in my front yard, are you okay? I don't see that here, but and they're usually like, yeah, leave me alone. And that's okay, they can say that, obviously. But if they say, I don't want, I'm elderly, I was surrounded by my trailer, I have no place to go. That's the person. I have 4 kids, and I'm in this little tent out here behind Ingles, or in my car packed with everything I own, which is, I think, the person we did find. There's
Where do you tell them to go? Is there a homeless shelter in Silva?
There is, and the here folks, the agency will find a way to get them. And as Linda said, that night, they're on their own. So it's the best of not a great situation, but it's at least a start to try and do something better. To at least say, we now know that we have a challenge here that we need to address, and how we do that. When the here folks are going to say, well, can you all get started on housing and help us? I'm like, you just gave me nothing. Let us get through this count and see what shows up and how, meaning what team shows up. And if we actually can pull this off, and then we'll talk about other programs that we can support, what you do to take what you have in Silva, sidewalks, panhandling. There's a little bit more, it's different here. It's here, but it's not, you have to go up the dirt road, and you have to,
Look in the abandoned shed or.
yeah.
So how many did we count?
We officially counted 1 person, and the guidelines are very strict. Like if they have a family to go live with and they decide not to, or a friend, that doesn't count. If it's above 32 degrees.
How many did you encounter?
The one who was with us and
indirectly,
3.
we tend, you can see where people were just there. And as someone said, folks who live on the streets or out in home, they're very resourceful. They connect. He said, you'd be amazed how they can network and find. They find a place to go and avoid interaction.
Scattered when you came.
Right, because their first impression is it's going to be the police. It's going to be somebody take my food, take my belongings, to chase me out. Or ICE, yeah.
No.
And these, we said, well, apologies for this, but this is what we've heard. I bet they're Hispanic. It's like, no.
Not necessarily.
And a friend of mine mentioned that, they did a pit count one time and said, hey, I know your sister. We went to school together. And it was someone who you could see the cracks were just falling into homelessness.
I wanted to do this because we've heard for the last few years from different agencies that we have a homeless problem. And people I know and say that to always say, I haven't seen it. So I wanted to witness it. I wanted to see for myself and be able to say to my friends, yes, we do, or no, we don't. And having been through this night, I'm not certain that I could say we have a giant homeless problem. But then the other half of me has to say, how many human beings without shelter make up a problem? And I saw, including the man who was riding with us, 2 other, I know of 2 others that were at that night. One who was interviewed and one who left the parking lot in order to avoid being interviewed, plus those whose residences were cars we saw who were gone from there. So I don't know, do 5 make up a problem? What constitutes a problem? And I don't know.
Or how about this, before we get any larger, which it's going to get more populated up here, we have a problem that's out of control.
Right, and how far do they need to go to find shelter on a night when it's 29 degrees?
Which we've had about 30 of them
This year.
since December.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why we wait until it's a problem to do something? We'd say, if we have 1, let's find a path,
Have a procedure.
and then when we ever have a big grocery and it becomes problematic, there's a way for us to shelter the unsheltered.
On this same night, they called what they call a code purple in Silva. And those who were unsheltered were able to get motel rooms.
If it's below 32 degrees, then they call what they call code purple, and that's a universal HUD term. So, and they've had about 20 some of those since middle of December.
But we have no procedure
We have not-
here.
We didn't even, not even a count. And that was part of this disheartening thing of the sink into, well, tell me what to do. Where's the team we're gonna volunteer to learn how to do this? And you could just see them going, no, 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 no. And it's like, okay, we're in this. And Allison was like, we're gonna do this. And Allison came out of her office, she goes, I'm with you on this. And there were so many that, 14 people. You know, Ralph Campbell, someone said, oh, you don't want Ralph Campbell, he's tough bird, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, he's coming. And he was awesome. He was awesome. He's like, how can I take the Glenville, club or the old VFW
Community
hall?
center,
And how can we like add showers to it? And I can become a state, shelter. I'm like, that's a great idea. I don't know how you get shelter, or I've never been to the VFW hall there, but he was awesome. I'm like, this guy, he's thinking. And this was all huddled around the table. We met an hour before the count started officially at 10 o'clock and just started talking out loud of, throwing, sticky notes on the wall going, what if, how can we do a temporary Band-Aid after this count? And then what can we do? So let's just keep on keeping on.
There's some parallel stories, one of which is this week, someone came in to speak to Allison who hadn't had a shower. I just need a place where I can,
since January 5th.
yeah. And so she needed shelter. She needed some place where she could go. There's the HUD way of counting, which is like this.
Yeah.
And then there is a way that we can, now that we've learned something, be able to expand our understanding of the issue. There were some good ideas that came from another person on the outreach committee about things that they have done in a previous place that we could incorporate. If we did get a group here that was really interested in the bigger picture than what the government's looking for, one of the 365 days during the year. And we've had other people like that, a woman who was living in her car and had a dog in her car, and can I park here? Yes, you can park here. So she would park in the Good Shepherd parking lot, and that was fine.
Yeah.
She even came into church once. Some of those people are passing through, some are looking for work, some are doing those things, but you just never really know when people are really down and out and in that more emergency situation. I'd also be interested to hear from you, Gordon, because when you're at Fishes and Loaves and that group of people, how many folks are you all potentially aware of that are really having a problem with shelter?
I haven't been working there recently, but we used to, they would come in and we always gave frozen food, fresh food and that sort of thing. So I don't have a refrigerator. I don't have a way to cook, and I can only take what I can carry. And so they kind of pick through what they want to take with them. And you knew real quick they didn't have a home. Didn't know where they were living, but we knew they weren't in a structure where they had a refrigerator and an oven or microwave even. So they can give you a pretty good count on any given night. If you want to pursue that. And then you were talking about them being resourceful. The other thing that tends to happen, we have many absentee landowners up here who are gone for the winter. And those homes become temporary shelters. And the people come back in the spring and find out that their home's been occupied and the pantry's empty. So that happens.
The electric bill went
also.
out in the middle of February. Yeah.
Right, and those security people you were talking to, pretty good idea of break-ins like that have occurred. And when you get desperate, you do what you have to do.
Right. And they're fed up with it. I mean, the poor guy, he's like, you all are nuts.
Well, and they're getting grief from the homeowner.
Get
Hey,
rid of
you're
this
supposed to be
problem.
watching my place.
Get rid of this problem.
Well, sometimes it's a porch or underneath a deck or a shed.
Right.
It's not always in the house.
Yeah, well, but the houses, they tend to leave the heat on, to keep them from freezing. So they're very convenient shelters when they can run across one.
And remember, a lot of people are not, they went to school like we did and something went sideways.
Right.
They're not necessarily, mental or meth or all the things we think of when we stereotype. It's any of us. So.
Kevin, the security people know, what is their count? What do they see number wise? You saw just a
I don't know. There was a lot of numbers that this person here and this group lives here,
This group, so they're,
depends, yeah. But you all just go home. You just you don't want to go around these people. And how many of you were in this car? Linda's got her blessing back. It was great. I mean, it was great to try, and not great because we were there, but it was to say, officer, we're looking at it differently. He goes, yeah, you're crazy. And we weren't crazy. And Bryce was probably called crazy. I don't know. There's probably been a lot of people, not to say we're anything like, but it's like, this is what I feel now, the prejudice of someone saying, this is not your job. This is not, you should not be the Christian you're trying to be, or whatever their rage. It was a rage. And he was beside himself you could just see his head exploding with, no, don't go do this. Don't do this. You let me do this. It's like, no, this is a different approach and we're going to do it. He goes, I just saw another batch of crazy people in a truck. One was Bill and Bar or Allison. He goes, are you all group? Are you doing this? I mean, he was just blown away. And we're not going to get to him tonight. And he's just out in the cold every night dealing with all this stuff. So.
Right, if we come up with our own way of having a census,
Exactly.
we talk to that group of people and say, how many people this month did you find in a situation like that?
Exactly.
If we're talking to Ralph and Aaron and us, how many people this month did you have come and ask for rent?
Yeah.
We begin to have a sense of it. Maybe they're transient, maybe they're not. Maybe we build a relationship with them if they're around over time, that when we do say we're gonna count again, they already know us. And we can say, we're meeting here at 6 o'clock in the middle of the day, or we're gonna come by and whatever else, and we'd like to be able to ask you some questions. Again, not related to federal funding or state funding or whatever else, but just related to what are we trying to do to make an assessment here? And does that lead to a different kind of effort on our behalf? Either, do you know about Fishes and Loaves? Do you know about this? Do you know about that?
Showers
resources, there are showers here, showers there.
VFW, if it gets fixed up now, I want to go see what we can do to help her out.
Yeah.
But
We
you're
want to
right.
help you somehow, but we don't want,
Well, the old community center.
Right. See there, that's how it gets going. And then you can get to the security guard officer, so-and-so, and so we become a resource for him to go, maybe that's what you're saying, Rob. It's like, oh, you know what? Instead of stealing their food and making them harass them, I'll just call those folks, those crazy folks I saw last year. I've got their number. They can help me now do my job. I can actually, there's another source for me besides beating these people up. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, we're giving information to hear.
Yeah, that's a good
And
point.
the count is a point in time, and the count is also, were you homeless on January 31st or a week afterwards? So Bill went to Fishes and Loaves with the rest of our blessing bags that we didn't hand out, with here's cards and forms.
Lynn Griffon is an excellent source for this. She talks to every individual to put them in the computer. And we used to ask for their address, and they don't have.
No. Name, phone number, email, and a contact if you have, like
You
your
won't
mom.
get an email and won't get a phone, but
But maybe
they'll say,
maybe mom's phone number.
they'll just say, I live in Cashers. But Lynn would be an excellent source for you.
I'll talk with you afterwards.
We had somebody that worked in our office, and I don't know if she's homeless or not, but this was before the Boys and Girls Club, and we didn't realize it, but she had a child who she kept locked in her car all day long, and sometimes after school, and we're saying, wait a minute, he's been in there for hours. I don't have anywhere to
So
take him.
that's an uninhabitable place that humans should not live.
Yeah,
That would count. And I'm not trying to put it in a block of HUD, but if that gets $1 of grant money here, that does help here, then I'm all for that. There's multiple
somebody
missions.
reported her to Human Services, and then, she was in danger of losing her child, and she was doing the best she could.
There's no other alternative then, so.
So I think the other important number, one of the other important numbers is 14. That now here knows there are 14 people up here who are at this level of care and concern, and that number could grow. and we can put a little bit more organization around this. Maybe we're gonna do this 4 times a year.
Yeah.
On our own and figure out, maybe we're gonna do it twice a year, maybe whatever else. And just begin to assess the situation, point people in the right direction. And then that's the partnership that we're trying to do with all of our partners. So what can we do, like Linda's saying, besides here are your
Here's your
needs,
check.
your ministry, and here's your check. What else can we do to let you know that there are people up here who care about people and want to make sure that through the love of God, that all that's being taken care of. So I really appreciate you, I mean, steaming right ahead and pulling and getting and recruiting people. I mean, that's the thing. It's part of it's just is recruiting, widen the circle. So I greatly thank you for that.
Yeah,
And
you're welcome.
everybody who went out, Allison and Linda and everybody.
Yeah, the team from here was David Jones, Bill Canby,
We were hiring linebackers.
and, Roman, who many of you have met. Roman was in our.
Yeah. And Hyra was gonna come, but then didn't make it because.
I tried to give him his first round draft pick and just, he wasn't coming.
Yeah.
I'd just like to say, Kevin told me
No,
that he wanted me to come as a little old lady, and he was very afraid that I was gonna show up in my sunglasses and diamonds. And instead, I came looking like when you see the picture, I'm the one who looks like the Michelin Man.
Irv's got a question.
Irv has a question.
Herb, you're on mute.
Linda, all you
I
were
don't know why I
missing was
talk
your
louder
card.
when someone's on mute.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. All right. Have we, maybe I missed this at first, but have we talked to the people here to try to learn what the opportunities to help are and what,
Yes,
you
this
know,
whole
what
thing.
maybe some of the structural issues are?
Yeah, the whole thing was generated by here, Irv. So we'll continue to talk with them, the ones who trained us to go out and do this.
I know, but if we had after, yeah. All right, you got broken up, but I was just thinking, since we did this exercise last week, maybe there's a different way of talking to them and learning more now that we know more.
We need to debrief, decompress, and yeah, you're right.
They have to finish their count.
Yeah.
Before we do anything, we need to let them
Yeah, it's
finish.
still got a couple more days, so, yeah.
Wow.
But yes, you're right.
So,
And to Linda's point, they are basically 2 people and a husband volunteer.
Right,
And, that's,
challenging.
and when they housed, what was it, y'all, 31 people
Yeah.
last month in hotel rooms, they're jammed up. They're just
you have a place.
jammed up.
Was
So
that
it's
probably
just,
not all?
and they're trying to do all those things that are in that acronym. Okay, right, so they're not only getting people housing immediately, they're trying to get them education, they're trying to get them, jobs.
Habitat for Humanity,
They're trying to get
all
them,
under their
Yeah.
scope.
yeah, they're trying to get, to do all those things with 2 people. And as he said last week, his wife, who is the executive director, was in court for 2 days last week with a client with mental illness.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can't say no, but she's not doing any other work. She's not helping anybody else find lodging or a job or doing any other work. So it's a lot.
Outside question behind it.
So if any of us come up with a great brainstorm, not a barnstorm, but a brainstorm, who do we refer to? Sharon?
Kevin.
Kevin?
Okay.
Or Fred Hallback, or
I don't know if
Well,
we're,
Bill and Bob
Bob,
or.
or Bob
Yeah,
Anderson.
that's fine,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll be glad to take.
Anyone on outreach,
Yeah.
anyone on the outreach committee.
Cause you know, like Rob said, it's not just about the money, it's.
are you on the outreach committee of the church?
And I am the year,
Liaison.
I'm their liaison, so I don't advocate, I make sure we stay in communication with.
But are you on the outreach committee of the
I am.
church? Okay, that's
So
all.
one of my agencies, first one I met was here, I'm like, I'll do it.
That's all I need to know.
Yeah,
Thank you all for coming.
yeah, thank you.
For your prayers.
Yeah.
I want to especially thank Judy and
Very relevant.
Judy and Gordon, because they're so connected in the community that
Yes.
I called them right away to say, who are your people?
She
Who can
did.
I talk to? What do you know? How else can we count people? And
That was
so
so
I appreciate that. Thank you all.
And thanks to Allison and the other 11 folks that I was amazed. It was just 10 o'clock at night, 29 degrees, we're golden. And then
You know how dark it is? I feel like I'm not out much.
it's dark.
Are you going done with the count and everything now?
Well, the count is officially that night of the 31st, and then every day, February
It's
6th,
dark and I get Bill can't.
anyone can say, if they're part of here, or if they're volunteer, can say, were you homeless, unsheltered the night of January 31st? If they say yes, they count.
Okay, but what I'm,
Go ahead.
see, when we lived in Florida for 7 years in Panama City Beach, I worked at the Goodwill. And
Okay.
I ran a warehouse, me and another guy, just us two.
Yeah.
We had homeless people live in the woods across the street. We took care of them guys. I've made friends with a lot of homeless people there. I know how to deal with them. I didn't know you were doing all this.
Yeah.
And I would take food to them. I would take blankets. If they were sleeping on the ground, we'd get a lawn chair in. We weren't supposed to do it.
That's what we're told, don't do it.
I
but
would
we
give it
did.
to them anyway, so they could sleep up off the ground.
You and Linda would get along just because she kept saying, we're gonna do it.
They would get in our dumpsters
Yep,
and get food if they needed food, because they gotta eat.
right.
And I ain't gonna take that away.
No, that's right. So we can do that part like yours. That's exactly.
But I'd like to help
Yeah,
next time when you do this.
all right, cool. We have 15 now.
What's your name?
Yeah. Teddy's.
Hey, Kevin, you know, I go to the rec center a lot.
Yeah,
There are people in there in front of the fireplace.
yeah.
In fact, one of the guys used to work at Eagles. And,
So if nothing
he
else,
had no place to
even if
stay.
it's not
They're
a county,
sleeping in their cars.
yeah, even if it's not ignitable, like Rob said, Linda made a little tiny sheet that says here, Jackson County, the number, all that. And, you know, we can find them a place, at least
Yeah.
connect with you, so they've got a sustainable path. Because if we house or do, we don't have that infrastructure here to do all the things these folks might need. We can do a temporary, like the bags, or
Yeah.
they're not gonna starve or get them a place to get a shower. But here can get them into back on the track if they.
We gave them soap, toothpaste, toothbrush.
Well, yeah, sausages all
First
that.
aid.
This guy's named Michael, and he goes to the rec center,
Yeah,
and he's sleeping in his brother's Winnebago, and he kicked him out. He said he had till Thursday to get out. That was last week. I told him to call
yeah.
if you ain't got nowhere to go.
Well, we can get him connected with here. Yeah, I mean, it's another option. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Darren.
I'll tell you.
Yes,